Good evening, everyone. If you can please take your seats, we are about to start. And I have an announcement to make for the Spanish speakers. Buenas noches. Si tenemos en la audiencia personas que hablen español y necesiten la traducción del contenido de la conferencia del inglés al español, estoy a sus órdenes. Estoy sentado en esta esquina y tengo el equipo de traducción. Simplemente necesitan hacérmelo saber. This was an announcement for the Spanish speakers that would require translations. Thank you. Gracias. Buenas noches.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. We're going to go ahead and get started. My name is David Guin. I'm with the City of Santa Rosa. I'm the Director of Planning and Economic Development and the Assistant City Manager. We're very proud to be here tonight. We have a big group of people here to answer questions. We've got tables in the back, a lot of resources for you. We're going to stay here to answer as many questions as we can for you. But the way we're going to run tonight is that we're going to have an opportunity for the agencies to talk a little bit. First, we're going to have FEMA and the Corps of Engineers come up and give a brief update on the debris removal process. Then we'll dive into an overview of the rebuild process. So myself on the city side and my good friend Tinnis Wick from the Permit Sonoma will be giving an update on the permit process on both the county and the city process. Then we'll open up the audience for Q&A. So we know we have a lot of questions out there on the rebuild effort. There are cards that are around on your chairs, little blue cards and pink cards. If you could put a question on that, we'll collect those, we'll group those, and then we'll go ahead and answer those. And we have people walking around in blue shirts with Sonoma written on them. Please hand your card to them. We'll collect those cards, and then we'll go through those and answer as many of those as we can up here at the microphone. Sorry. Okay, after we answer a few questions, what we're going to do is break into tables. So we have tables in the back for both the city, the county, the water department, and then there's also the Corps of Engineers in the room out the hallway. So we'll be able to answer more specific one-on-one questions if you have them. So we'll have a couple opportunities to ask questions. If you have, you do either on the card or come in person, and we'll be sure to answer those questions for you. So that's the basic run of how tonight's going to work. We're going to go ahead and get started first with the Corps of Engineers. So first, please help me welcome Robert Pespain. He's the Branch 1 Director for FEMA, and Colonel McFadden from the U.S. Corps of Engineers to talk about the debris process.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here tonight. I'm Robert Pespain. I'm the Branch 1 Director overseeing recovery efforts for Sonoma, Mendocino, Lake, and Napa counties. First, I want to touch quickly on our individual assistance program, what we've done to date. It's hard to think that we're a little over 4 months now into this recovery effort from the October fires. On the individual assistance side, we've already dispersed $15 million in the hands of survivors, and that's a combination of other needs assistance and housing assistance. The Small Business Administration has approved over $120 million. That's a combination of home loans as well as business loans. And we've been working aggressively with county and city officials on the debris removal, which is our largest effort here in the county. Currently, we have in the back, once we break for the tables, we have staff from the individual assistance team. So if you're still having any issues with your FEMA application, received a denial, or still working through your insurance or you're underinsured, please continue to work with FEMA. Our job is try to get the yes if we can and want to be responsive to your needs. So we do have a team in the back. Equally important and timely in this topic of rebuilding is mitigation. So how do you build your home back better and stronger? And so we have staff in the back to talk about our mitigation programs and then some best practices that you can undertake as you go through your rebuild. In terms of the debris removal, for Sonoma County, we're 72% complete on the debris removal. That includes complete removal of debris, the initial debris phase in Coffey Park. We're making steady progress in Fountain Grove. I also want to emphasize, as we can continue to move through quickly with this debris removal, with moving about 25,000 tons of debris a day and over 700 trucks on the road, we are working as quickly and safely as possible. To get into a little bit more details on the debris removal mission, I'm pleased and joined here by Colonel McFadden, who's the commander overseeing the entire Corps of Engineers mission and overseeing our prime contractors. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Colonel McFadden.
All right, thank you. First of all, thank you to everybody. I'm honored to be here in front of you tonight. I can tell you that we wouldn't be here right now in the progress where we're at if it didn't take the whole community to get there. Just kind of echo some of the things that Robert talked about. Across all 4 counties, we're at about 76% right now. We've moved about 1.4 million tons of debris in Sonoma County alone. Just to echo, about 72%, 1.1 million tons alone just in Sonoma County. Highlight, that means 2,860 parcels have been cleared of debris. However, we're in a phase right now, which is called the final prep phase. And so what we will be doing on each one of these parcels for roughly about 800 parcels that are remaining, we're looking at removing the cars, installing some erosion control, sampling will be conducted and continue to go on, and then also hand debris cleanup. And then final quality control checks before the county is notified that the parcel is ready for rebuild. I am with you tonight. Obviously, I brought a crew of some of the Corps of Engineers folks that are out in the front. You may have seen them when you come in. This is where I ask for your assistance. If you do have an issue, please share it with us tonight. We have issue intake forms. We have individuals that are here to answer your questions. And if we can't answer your question tonight, we will take it back and within about 48, 72 hours, get back with you, well, at least an update on how we're answering the question you've asked of us. Our issue resolution process, the first step in any issue resolution process is understanding the issue. And that's where we need your help, what your issue is, your contact information, and how we can get back to you to address your issue. Without further ado, thank you. It's an honor to be here in front of you, and I look forward to talking to you.
Thank you. And again, they will be here in the back to answer questions after this. So please remember, if you have questions, you could either see them in the back or, again, write them down on a note card and we'll answer them during the Q&A. So the next thing we want to do is give an update on the rebuild process. I'm going to invite Tennis Wick up. Tennis Wick is the Director of Permit Sonoma. And go ahead and we'll let him get started first. There's information behind us on the screen about the city Permit Center and the County Permit Center. We'll talk about both those, what the process is, what resources there are available to you at those locations, and give an overview of the process. So we'll start with the county first with Tennis.
Great. Thank you, David. Good evening, everyone. So let me start first with the work that's been going on with fire survivors in the regular Permit Center. Many of you have been coming through there and getting permits for reconstructing your homes in the burn zone. We have 10 residences under construction there now, 11 bridges of the 72 that were destroyed. So progress is being made out there. It's really heartening to us to see you in our shop, moving through the process quickly and coming out. For those of you who did go through before the board reduced the fee schedule, we are automatically refunding you the difference. You don't need to submit a form. So if you are one of those individuals, hopefully you'll be receiving a check from the county soon. For those of you who have not been through the permitting process yet for the county, we are in day 3 of the Resiliency Permit Center. So this is a separate entity that you'll find outside of our normal office in modular buildings. It's housed by and staffed by West Coast consultants. WC3 is the recipient of the contract. They will be with us for at least 3 years. We're going to be there as long as the need is. And Mike Renner is a principal with the company. He will be the primary contact in the center. Rob Spalding, the gentleman in the black next to him, is he's our chief building official. He'll be any of the gray area questions that come up between the white shirt and the black shirt will be handled through those two. We want to make our customs and practices that aren't clear in our code, get those resolved quickly. We negotiated, I think, a very good contract with WC3. You have a guaranteed reduced rate that's about 35 to 40% lower than the regular fee schedule. You'll be processed to first plan check in no more than 5 days. What we're seeing is that's happening a lot faster. So what we're encouraging is electronic plan check, which most of your designers will be happy to hear about. That helps us facilitate the speed in getting you through the system. We have digital scheduling, telephone scheduling. We highly encourage that you contact us for a pre-application meeting. And it doesn't matter where you are in the design process. If you're still at the beginning, maybe you're still trying to work things through with your insurance company, it's never too early to come see us. You can't come see us too much. We want to see you to get your package as complete and thorough as possible before it's submitted so we can get it through the process quickly and get you on to construction. So I'll leave it there and look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And if you're in the city of Santa Rosa limits, you'll come to the city's permit center. It's, again, a separate center. We've been open since November 27th. And we've currently processed, as of today, 21 plans have been approved through that program. And just like the county, we have hired additional staff to get that through. We have our Steve Jensen, who's in the back of the room at the back table. He oversees that group with Brian Spain. And Gabe Osborne is at the back table as well to provide answer questions tonight. The center is dedicated for those that are rebuilding, so focus on you. Again, as with the county, our plans are turned around within 5 days, and again, we're seeing about 2 to 3 day turnaround times on your first plan check, and then a quick, potentially over-the-counter or 1 day turnaround time for the final check. So things are moving quickly. And again, the engineers and contractors and architects that are working through are getting used to the system and working with us. So please, if you have questions about the process, if there's issues you're running into, let myself or Steve know, and we'll work through them with you. The center is open Monday through Friday from 8 to 5, so you can come in any day through the week. It's at City Hall. So make sure to come in if you have questions. There's also a phone number there that we answer. We'll be able to answer your questions over the phone or via email. So any way that you need to get your questions addressed. One of the other things that we are doing, that we're announcing, is that we're going to have a wood chipping program that has been released today. So there's trees and wood debris on properties. We have 2 weekends identified now that we're going to offer a free chipping event. They're February 24th and February 25th, and this information there's a flyer on the back table, so if you want to pick one up and not have to write this down, but it's 2 weekends, February 24th and 25th, be at Nagasawa Park on the 24th and Coffee Park on the 25th, and then the second weekend is March 10th and March 11th, and again, Nagasawa Park on the 10th and Coffee Park on the 11th. And so that'll be an opportunity for you to bring wood debris to have that chip for free, and then we'll utilize those chips around in city parks and other things to help reuse that product. In terms of the questions that are coming in, we are seeing a desire to want to take a different look at your home, potentially make changes to your home, your footprint. We understand that, we're expecting that, and we're supporting that effort. So if you want to make changes, you don't have to stay strictly to what your footprint is. The staff has been seeing plans come in and seeing people want to update things and working through fairly quickly with those. So please don't feel like you have to stick directly to your footprint. If you have questions about that, if you have ideas, feel free to come in and ask before you go down the path of making too big of a change. But that, again, please talk to us and know that we are working through any changes and modifications that you want to make to your house. So with that, I think we want to give people time to write questions down. We'll answer specific questions here in a minute, but if you have questions, please get them to people that are on the sides. And I'm going to turn it over now to Rick Lopez, who's the Chief Public Affairs with the Contractor State License Board, to give an update on what they're doing out here.
Hi, thank you and good evening. You've gotten some good information, and I'm going to be giving you hopefully some good information as you do look for towards hiring a contractor and to move on with the rebuilding project. But in the few minutes that I'm going to be with you, I actually, as much as I'd like to avoid this, I kind of want to scare you a little bit, and stick with me here, because it's important that as you enter the rebuilding process that you don't let your guard down, that you be sure you keep your guard up. If I could ask, how many of anybody here in the room who had opted out of the main debris cleanup and is taking the responsibility for the cleanup? Do we have anybody in the room that's doing that? Okay, I want you to just pay special attention. One of the things that we feared that we are starting to see happen here in Sonoma County, and that is an influx of unlicensed contractors, and we're seeing it especially as one I'm going to briefly talk about. There is a person who's come in from out of state and has actually leased office space here in downtown Santa Rosa and is working without a license and procuring contracts. We issued and we served a search warrant on his office yesterday, and we want to warn you about him because we feel very strongly that he's going to continue to try to take advantage of those of you who are taking care of your own debris removal. His name is Peter Koch, K-O-K-E. He either goes by Koch Cleanup or Koch Demolition. So if anybody has, come across or possibly hired him for work, I'd appreciate you if you can stop by and see me after the presentations. We'd like to have our investigators get in touch with you. But if you do get approached, or he was doing ads on Craigslist and he is around, be very careful. He actually is from North Carolina. This week he was convicted of insurance fraud, and actually it was sentenced to probation and a couple years in jail back there. So he is here in this area working and has given us every indication that he plans to stay here. So the warning to you is to be very careful if you're handling your own debris removal. Another thing to let you know of is we are starting to see an increase in unlicensed contractors in other areas. On January 27th, about 3 weeks ago, we conducted an undercover sting operation here in Santa Rosa where we used a partially damaged home, and we posed as the homeowners, and we ended up catching 13 people who had taken out ads and had solicited bids to do rebuilding work. 10 of those people are facing felony charges. Because of the disaster declaration in this area, what is normally a misdemeanor, which is contracting without a license, can be charged as a felony. So 10 of the 13 people we caught will now face felony charges. 2 of those people, and here's a way to be aware, 2 of these people were formerly licensed contractors. They let their license expire, one in 2003 and one in 2011. So they knew they needed to be licensed. They haven't been licensed for a long time. They were out there passing off their license numbers saying they were licensed to do the work. So the point is you need to keep your guard up. You need to be aware that these people are out there. And as much as we've tried to publicize, the fact is this is not the area where they want to come try to get work. They are coming here. And we are working closely with the local law enforcement as well as the Sonoma County District Attorney. As I mentioned, there's pending felony charges against these people we caught. Other people, the District Attorney will be very aggressive. So one of the other things that we would encourage, and we have a flyer back on our table if you would pick it up, if you do get approached or solicited by anybody who is not properly licensed, we would encourage you to get the information that you can and contact us and give us that information. We'll either get them into a future sting operation, or we'll go after them and try to catch them before they can take advantage of anybody. Again, sorry to be kind of a negative Nelly, but unfortunately, we all have to band together and look out for each other. So even if you have the Army Corps and the others taking care of your debris removal, you may have friends or neighbors who are having it, and if they're not here tonight, please get that word to them. They need to be very careful when they're looking to hire. A contractor does need to be licensed to do the debris removal, unless you've got just ash left on your lot. If you've got the foundation, if you've got any partial walls, the chimneys, any of that kind of stuff, they actually have to be licensed. It's called a C21 demolition license. So if somebody's coming on and saying they can just do the work, be very careful, because they really should be licensed to do that work. We also are conducting regular sweep operations through the area. We are part of you're very lucky here. There is a North Bay Wildfire Debris and Cleanup Task Force. It's not only the Contractors Board, but the District Attorney and the FBI are involved in this. And so you've got a lot of people here that are wanting to protect you. Okay, so I'll briefly just check on some of the things. If you are looking to hire a contractor, a couple features on our website that I'd like you to know about. One of them has been around for years. It's our instant license check. So if you do have a contractor that you're considering or somebody you're considering bringing out to give you some kind of a bid, you want to go ahead and look up their license information on our website. You can plug in either their license number, their business name, or even if they're the owner or somebody on that license, you can plug their name in. Be careful in those because there could be a lot of John Smiths out there. So the best way to search is by a license number. So when you're looking to find a contractor, if you get a flyer or you see a truck parked on the street, look, by law, they're required to have their contractor's license number in any advertisement. That includes a business card, a flyer on the side of their truck, an ad online. So you want to look, it's a 6 or 7 digit number. Like the gentleman, Mr. Koch, I had mentioned earlier, he has applied for a contractor's license. That is on hold, but he was using his application number as saying that's how he was licensed. Well, I'm waiting for the license to get sent to me. So you want to look, it's either a 6 or 7 digit number. You plug that in, you're going to get the information on them, their name, their address, what license classification, which is very important. You want to make sure that they're licensed to do the kind of work that you're asking for. You also have information on their bond and also workers' compensation, which is very important. You want to make sure if they're going to have a crew out working on your property that they're properly covered by workers' comp insurance. And that means if they get hurt while they're on your property, they're covered. If they're not, there's a chance they could come after you for their medical bills. So that's the last thing you want to have happen. So you want to be very sure, and you don't necessarily want to take their word for it. Ask them for information on their policy. You can get it on our website, but actually call the company and find out. Make sure they haven't told the insurance company that they've got 5 office workers, when in reality they've got 10 people out working in the field. They're trying to get cheaper rates, so they're not trying to deceive you. So you have to do your homework, but it's something that you absolutely want to check and be aware of. The other feature that I'd like you to know about is if you're just starting and don't even know who to call out or where you can even find a contractor to try to see if they're available. We've got a new feature, and you can see it on our placard back there, but we have flyers for this. It's called Find My Licensed Contractor. All you need to do is you need to plug in either your city or your zip code and the kind of contractor you're looking for. A general contractor is a B license. So there's a drop-down menu. So you would put in Santa Rosa and a B license, hit the button, and you'll get a listing of every contractor in the local area who is licensed with an active B contractor's license. So you're not going to get electricians in that. You're not going to get plumbers. You're going to get that. If you search for an electrician, you'll get that list. But you can be rest assured those people are all at that moment properly licensed to do the work. Some of these other websites and features that are out there that say they do background checks on contractors, that may be a good way to go as one of your checks, but there's no guarantee that people on those sites are actually licensed. So our feature, you're 100% guaranteed that they will be a licensed contractor. And finally, just a couple other points to make sure you're aware of. And again, we do have the information. We don't expect you to write all the notes down. We have this that you can take with you. When it comes to down payments, be very careful of any contractor who tries to get a big payment out of you up front. Mr. Koch, the man I mentioned earlier, was getting usually between $10,000 and $20,000 up front to do debris clearing. And he took the money and did a little bit of work in some cases no work, and took off. So the law in California when it comes to these kind of projects is this is down payment. You should pay no more than 10% or $1,000, whichever's less. So if your job is a somewhat small one, let's say it's $5,000, your down payment should be no more than $500. So if you have a contractor come in and saying, I need half the money up front, I need to get started, I need to go buy my materials, that should be a red flag to you. Is why can't you even have credit? Why don't you do this kind of work? Aren't you a professional business to do this? Be careful of the fly-by-night people who say they need you to front them the money. Your money is your best leverage over getting them to do their work. The law says that they can't ask for more than the 10% or $1,000 as a down payment. And then in your contract, you want to have set up what's called progress payments. When a part of the job gets done to your satisfaction, that's when you pay for that portion of the job. And it's spelled out in your contract. When the next part of the job is done to your satisfaction, you pay for that part of the contract. Don't let your payments get ahead of the work that's being done or the materials. If they're saying they've got a delivery of materials they have to pay, you may have to arrange to be there to pay the supplier yourself, or write a two-party check. Write it to the contractor and to the supply company. Different ways you want to go to protect yourselves. And then there's things you want to be aware of called mechanics liens. I won't get into all the details, but there's a lot of things, and it can be a very complex process. So you really should do your homework. Be rest assured, though, the Contractors Board will be here with you. We have lots of information. We have a great 25-minute video that kind of guides you through the rebuilding process. I'd encourage you to watch that. It's on our website. And the last thing is to make sure that you're checking references. You want to actually go out and see the work. B contractors, and there, just in the city of Santa Rosa, there's more than 800 B contractors, but not all contractors who have that license are necessarily competent or have experience building houses. So just because they're licensed to do that doesn't mean that they have experience. So you want to get references from them. You want to find out that they're not getting in over their heads. You actually want to go out and see the work, talk to the homeowner, find out, did they show up on time? How did the payments go? Is the work, the quality good? You want to actually check them out. And the last thing is we talked a little bit about the permit centers that have been set up, is make sure that your contractor is the one who's pulling your permits. Don't let a contractor or somebody talk you into declaring yourself as an owner builder and you pull your own permits. The responsibility in that case falls on you. When the contractor pulls the permits, they are then responsible for making sure that the job passes all the code and all the inspections. If you pull it, it's all on you. So again, sorry if that sounds like I'm being a little bit of a downer, but it really is critically important at this point is to take a deep breath and realize that there's some homework and there's some things you're going to do, but there are a lot of good, competent contractors there, and there's a lot of people out here watching over you and making sure that you're not going to become a victim a second time. So we'd encourage you to utilize the services. We do have a toll-free hotline that's Monday through Friday from 8 to 5. You bypass our automated system. You'll go right to somebody. If you do have any questions about contractors, feel free to call us up. The number and everything is back on our table. So we'd encourage you to stop by, and we'll look forward to answering any questions you may have later. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Rick. That was very helpful information. Again, Rick will be back here, and there is a table here for the Contractors License Board. And can I get somebody from Santa Rosa to come up as well to help to answer some of the questions? So we have a list of questions here, and Tiss is going to help facilitate this. I think we all have questions to go through, so you want to get started?
Yep. Now you find out how dumb the directors really are. They call up their experts here. So first question, Tennis, how much can we extend the house? I assume they may expand the house without an extra fee from the county. So we have flat fees for park impact fees, road impact fees. So those are the same, and those are waived actually for your project. So there wouldn't be any increase because they're not being imposed in the first place. Affordable housing, some irony, would be imposed for the increment above what you had before. So what I would encourage is that you come in and see us as part of the pre-application. We establish the square footage that you had before the fire, and then help figure out what the fees will be exactly for your project when it comes in. Yes, sir. That's the square footage on all levels. Okay. So it looks like the city's still making up answers. For the county, no, keep at it. It's all right. Take your time. Is it the job of the general contractor to arrange for well and septic inspection and for geotechnical test? As far as we're concerned, that can be the property owner, it can be your general contractor, it could be your design professional. So hopefully that answers the question. As far as well and septic inspection, we're really keeping that at a cursory level to just demonstrate that those two elements of your property are still functioning. What we found is the fire impacted the electronics for the most part on each one. And we're only requiring something called a modified findings report for your septic system to make sure that it's still functioning. So practically speaking, that means as long as you flush, it doesn't daylight, we're good to go. Now I'm dumb, and I'll bring up the experts. This is Mike Renner.
Hi, so that can be filled out by a licensed, I believe it's a C46 contractor, a civil engineer, or a registered environmental health specialist. And if you stop by our permit center, we have a list of approved vendors for that service.
Cool. Thanks, Mike. Next question, can we have a trailer on our property, basically a fifth wheel until our home is finished? Absolutely. So we have a temporary housing permit, costs a whopping $83. And that allows you to have that trailer there from now until 31 December 2019. I would imagine if need be, we'll extend that with the board's permission. And it's really gratifying to me when I go through the fire area to see not only the landscaping coming back, but trailers popping up on properties. That's exactly what we want. We want you back on your land, living there, whether it's in a trailer or a second unit, if you want to build that first, but we want you back on your property. So we're trying to make it as cheap and as easy as possible to get that trailer or whatever unit you're going to use for that transitional housing as soon as possible. Okay, bear with me here. I've got to read different handwritings with 60-year-old eyes. My house was built with 2x4s. I'm now required to build with 2x6s, which adds additional cost per square foot. Will the county consider additional square feet subject to reassessment for Prop 13 purposes? So I want to make very clear we're the permitting agency, and I want to keep our people in our lane. If you have questions when you come down to the Resiliency Permit Center, one of us will be happy to send or walk you over to a dedicated staffer that's in the assessor's office, and they can answer very, very specific questions about what tax ramifications, if any, there will be for your project. Please address the costs and permit requirements for replacing all or portions of a septic system. So again, modified findings report to make sure your system's still functioning, as long as right, the world of septic systems and regulation, it's the number of bedrooms that counts. So if you're bringing back the same number of bedrooms, you're good to go. If you're building more than 640 square feet in additional square footage, then you'll have to upgrade your system to current regulations. If you're not, you won't. Thank you. How much can we extend the house without extra fee in the county? We already addressed that. And having an RV on your property while construction's going on, and what type of permit do you need? So again, the temporary housing permit for the whopping sum of $83. So you'll be good to go. Okay, this last question here. I need to know how much, very nice writing, by the way. Thank you. I need to know how much I can recover from insurance before I can decide if I can rebuild. How can I find out the code upgrades that would apply? Great question. There are a lot of older homes were destroyed out there, and we're going to, of course, people will be building to the new building code. So again, that's a really good question for pre-application when you come in. And again, so here's someone who's starting pretty much at the beginning. We encourage you to come in and visit. And the contact information is backed by Maggie Fleming, who will be raising her hand. Maggie's our communications manager, and would also encourage you to take that and review the city and county's websites, because that's where we're going to be updating information. You folks are generating a lot of good questions, and we want to provide the answers there too, because many of your neighbors have the same questions. Also, the block captains meetings that are held weekly for the Tubbs fire survivors at the water agency, Wednesday mornings at 7:30. Great resource there, not only to hear from us as regulators, but service providers like PG&E, and from each other about finding economies of scale. We're also setting up block captains meetings for Nuns fire survivors in Sonoma Valley, and as soon as that location and time is made final, we'll be posting that on the website as well. So at this point, I'll hand it over to Dave for information from the city.
All right, so a question is about accessory dwelling units, second units, asked about what are they and how are they, or the fees, what are they and how are they determined? So the fees for second units, we do have a fee schedule for that, but just in general, we did institute a new ADU policy similar to the county. Anything 750 square foot or less, we've waived the demand fees except the water connection fees where required. Anything over 750 square feet would have an incremental cost. So again, those costs, there's a fee schedule on our website, and you can check in the back for more detailed information on that. But we did lower the cost threshold to try to encourage more second units to be built. We are encouraging second units, as with the county policy went into effect, to allow people to build their second unit first if that's something you want to do prior to your main residence. That's an option. Another question, is the city encouraging electronic plan check submittals? Yes, we're doing that as well, and do encourage that. Another question, are there any special permanent issues provisions for using prefab, such as hybrid core or panelized plans? So things such as hybrid core, prefab involves the state, so it would be a slightly different process where the state would approve the unit itself first, and then it would go through a site design or site review through the city process. So just be aware it is a two-step process if you do use this process, but we do allow it, and we do support that product. This one is, sorry. I think this has to do with security in the neighborhoods with supplies being stolen. Our police force and the sheriff departments are aware of this, understand the fact that there's going to be a lot of construction, a lot of materials, a lot of equipment that's out all at one time through the reconstruction of 5,000 homes. So they do have a plan in place to make rounds, to keep an eye on things. So we'll have to make sure the law enforcement stays on top of that, and they are aware of it. So the second, can the city publish a short list of the top 20 or so universal code upgrades since 1970 for insurance purposes? Yes, we could do that. We could pull something together to give basically a cheat sheet of those upgrades. Yeah, it is a great idea. Thank you. If the footprint of your old home was not compliant with current setback requirements, can we rebuild in the old footprint? We will grandfather you to build back into what you were before if you build exactly back to that space. The only caveat we would have is if a creek setback. So if you're close to the creek for safety reasons, we'd want to check on that. But please come in to the office and talk with either the city or county before you move too far on that, just so we can make sure that it's done in an appropriate way.
So that was our first customer when we opened 3. So the question was, what do you do if you can't demonstrate how big or where your house was? So a rural property owner came in, had a permit history of just a shed on the property. So we went over to the assessor's office, got her the field notes, and worked with her to come up with what we thought was a reasonable determination, processed her design review that same day. So again, I would encourage you to come in. We'll work with you and other parts of the county government to do our best to establish a threshold. We don't find that people are wildly fibbing in this process. We know you're just trying to get to where you were before, so we can work it out. That's a great thing to come in and start with. So we encourage you to come in and visit.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Gabe Osborne. I'm the Deputy Director of Development Services for the City of Santa Rosa, and I'm going to go through a stack of the city-related questions here. So the first one, will the city allow trailers on site for temp housing, and what is the process and the cost? We will. The process is fairly straightforward. It can be done at our Resilience Center. We have a handout that covers the steps that need to be done to connect that to power, to sewer, to water, whatever your preference is, and the fees are waived for that process. So that is actually detailed in a document at the counter in the back. The second question, with reference to home sprinkler requirements, Hidden Valley Estates water pressure is reported to be inadequate for residential sprinklers. Will the city do anything about this? So typically the static pressure in the water system is very difficult to control. It's based on a lot of factors. So for properties that have lower pressure, it's usually a tank and a pump that's actually installed on site to get over that pressure issue. Oftentimes there's not really much that can be done because of the overall impact that a pressure change has. Quick add-on to that. It won't probably give you the drastic pressure increase you're looking for. The upsize in the pipe helps from a volume standpoint for the sprinkler system, but some of those older properties is the pressure issue. So it's fairly typical to see the tank and the pump to account for that. It's actually part of the rebuild process. It's a private tank and pump, so it's actually part of your sprinkler system. So the property owner will. So the next question is very close to that, fire sprinkler cost and water pressure question mark. Very similar to the fire sprinkler cost. A fire sprinkler designer will spec that out. You'll have a contractor produce a cost associated with that, and the water pressure question was in the last question. If your house or detached garage was close to property line and you change your footprint, how close can you rebuild? Can you utilize grandfather distances? So that's very similar to some of the other questions. We do grandfather in if you're actually building outside of current setbacks, the existing footprint, if that can be determined, but overall you have to stay within the footprint. Is there a list of people who do geotechnical reports? So that is actually a licensed professional. Usually what we've recommending people do is the North Coast Builders Exchange or local affiliated groups of that nature are pretty good resources to identify those types of licensed professionals. And the last here is a multiple part. It says the sequence for changing footprint, and it has a checklist. It says number 1, check on setbacks on property. Number 2, get a basic architectural design. Number 3, check with city planning. Number 4, final architectural plans. Number 5, get permit from the city. Is this correct? It's a pretty good sequence. Usually what I recommend is start with the city first, as you can determine your setbacks. If you have a general conceptual idea as to what you want to do, it doesn't hurt to let us know, to give us an idea how that's going to fit in. At some point, that conceptual review is helpful. But if you can get some direction without that conceptual review from the city, you might be able to jump that a little bit, start there, and then move through your professional review with your architect, and then get to the permit process. So the site survey, and this is really the city side, is really looking at to determine spatially where you place the foundation within the setback. So in a lot of these properties, the monuments that currently existed on the property that were the good indicator of where your property line were, they could be gone, they may still be there. What we've seen in Coffee Park is it's a bit of a mixed bag. If they're there and you can measure that off to where the foundation is placed within the setbacks, that is one way that it could be done. If those monuments don't exist, you likely will need to get a surveyor to certify that the foundation is placed appropriately in the lot.
You say the city is waiving the temp occupancy for residents?
Yes, for residential housing.
But the county's not.
Sir, could you just restate the question for us?
Me?
Yes.
Well, I just asked him to clarify if the city was waiving the temp occupancy. And I just wonder why the city would, but the county wouldn't.
How would we be waiving temp
Say,
occupancy?
could you talking about the fee for occupancy, or?
Apparently, that's what he said, they're waiving the fees.
The permit process for temporary housing.
Oh, so we've got, so as I mentioned, the fees,
$83.
$83.
Yeah.
And that's what the board has established, and that's what we're charging.
Right, so far I've paid $117 for temp hours, $145.
Yeah. So I'm aware of your situation. Maybe we can talk afterward, because we need to get some money back to you. Yeah? Yeah. Sorry?
Yeah, those are getting put together.
Yes. So if you could see us afterward, we'll get things made right. You bet. Thanks for your patience. So a question from a customer here. If my home had a 3-bedroom septic, had 3 bedrooms and only a 1-bedroom septic capacity, can we rebuild the same thing? Come see us. Come see us. We'll work, so what I would suggest is come see us, bring your septic, bring your contractor. Don't bring the system. Barely, it's small enough, maybe you could, but we don't want to encourage you to do that. Now, we're going to have to work with you there and find a solution that's unique. Can a pool be considered as a tank for a sprinkler system?
Not generally, no.
No.
In a pinch, yes.
So next we wanted to go to Jason, because Jason had one question to make him feel validated.
Good evening. My name is Jason Nutt. I'm the Director of Transportation and Public Works and the Interim Director of Recreation and Parks for the City of Santa Rosa. And I have my one question that you all asked, and it relates to sidewalks and what's the city doing in relation to the sidewalks in the burn area. And we are in the process of working with our partners, both at FEMA, the Army Corps of Engineers, and our utility partners to try to provide the best system at the end of the day to make the sidewalks look and feel appropriate when you all are done finished with your houses. Am I being a little evasive? A little bit. Partly because we don't totally know exactly what the final project's going to be. We don't know how much will be reimbursed by FEMA as far as determining if the sidewalk is truly damaged or if the sidewalk is still in fairly decent condition. That's a process we're going to be working on over the next 60 days with FEMA. We already have an agreement with the Army Corps of Engineers that if the debris removal process damaged the sidewalk, they've agreed to compensate and repair the sidewalk. We've also been working with PG&E and other utilities along the same lines. If they have to do undergrounding work that results in trenching across the sidewalk that will result in damage, then they are also going to be compensating to make that right. Realistically, we don't want to rebuild the sidewalk 3 times. We want to rebuild it once. And so that's part of the coordination effort that we're trying to figure out to make sure that it's all done properly. So that's where we're at there. The other part of the question related to street trees. Street trees that are burned that will not regenerate will be removing as a part of the debris removal process. We do not have a program for replanting trees at this time. We are going to be working with our Recreation and Parks team to determine how we might try to repopulate roadside trees as well as landscaped areas. There's a significant amount of landscaping up in the Fountain Grove area in particular that was burned and completely damaged as a function of this fire. We do not have a restoration plan at this time. We are working on that as we speak to determine what options we might have to bring those back. We do know that FEMA will be helping reimburse us for the cost of irrigation and electrical componentry associated with those landscaped areas, but they will not reimburse us for the cost of the trees to replant. And so we're working on this program right now. We'll be happy to provide more updates as we get further down the line. Sir. So I might need some help from my friends at Planning and Economic Development. I'll give you my input, or do you want to take over this one? My input is realistically the driveway is that of the property owners, and it should be a function of the property owner to reconstruct. The city is taking on the responsibility in this particular case to rebuild sidewalks. Those of you who live in the city probably are aware the city has delegated the responsibility for ongoing maintenance and care of the sidewalk to fronting property owners. Because it is in the public right-of-way, we are working with FEMA and our federal partners to try to recover the cost of repairing those sidewalks on behalf of not only you as the property owner, but us as the public who will use that. Did I cover the driveway reasonably? So the driveway approach would be something that the property owner would need to cover as a part of your recovery on the site. Sir. So our fire marshal will come up and answer that question shortly. So. All right, thank you very much.
Okay, last 2 questions, and then just a reminder that County officials will be over here to answer any questions that you have after this. So, good question here. For geotechnical tests, can a group of neighbors use one geotechnical report to save costs? Perfect example of economy of scale. Yes, and we've already worked out a protocol with all the geotechnical engineers in the county about how this can actually happen. I won't go into the details now, but the answer is yes, and I think it's a good thing that we're doing in cooperation with the design community. Last question is road repair. Kenwood resident asking about road condition and when it would be repaired at Lawndale and Schultz. I know exactly the part you're talking about, where there's holes and a washout. As the permit director, don't know, but I'll find out. So come up and see me afterward. I'll get your contact information and get the Public Works Director in contact with you. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to turn it over to the Fire Marshal, Scott Moon.
Hey, good evening. My name is Scott Moon. I'm the Fire Marshal with the Santa Rosa Fire Department. The question that was asked, the gentleman had just raised it, is can Fountain Grove Parkway be changed to act like a fire barrier? And Fountain Grove Parkway is a main thoroughfare through our community. It services over 1,500 homes up in that location, so that would not be practical at this point. We will be working with all the homeowners and private properties through that area to ensure that we maintain vegetation management requirements as well as defensible space moving forward in the rebuild process. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'm going to turn it over to Ben Hornstein, who's the Santa Rosa Water Director.
So as Dave noted, Ben Hornstein, the Director of Santa Rosa Water. A couple questions here. Can you provide an update on the water quality contamination in Fountain Grove? That question, assumes a certain baseline of understanding. I think generally folks do understand as a result of fire. We do have some contamination in a designated area that you've seen on maps, and there's one back there in the Fountain Grove area. We are actively investigating the cause and nature of this contamination. It is very unique. Typically in fires in areas like this, you don't see this around the country. So it is something we're struggling through. We're working closely with state, local, federal regulators and a team of national experts to help us. We have set an internal deadline to complete the investigation by the end of March in order to have the plan moving forward in place on how we're going to take care of this issue, how we're going to mitigate this contamination issue. I do want to say that at this point, it does look like, more likely than not, we're going to have a wholesale replacement of the entire water distribution system. How will it impact the rebuild timeline? So I think there's two parts of that. The current plan, and I don't imagine it will change, is permits will be issued for rebuild in this area as it will through the other areas. We will not be able to allow occupancy of the homes until we're complete with that work, upgrading the water system in that area or resolving it in some other manner. So the question was a follow-up to what I noted, asking if you will not allow occupancy, how will you get a loan? That does exceed my knowledge in terms of the financing of your rebuild. I have heard sporadically that there are some issues with that. I'm hopeful once the city has a defined plan and schedule in place, that would be something homeowners can provide lenders to show that there is a clear path the city is committed to and moving on to resolve this problem by a target date. And I do want to call it a target date when we do have the schedule for the rebuild. Things don't always happen on schedule. We have a great team of construction engineers that are looking at very creative ways to do this work, to accelerate the work at a very quick pace, far faster than it would otherwise be in a traditional project that we manage. We don't have the time, and I know some folks are very interested because there's decisions based on that. And I will say in a few weeks we will have that. So I think those are the questions. Yes, sir.
If you look at the map out there, you have an outline territory area where there's a problem. Does that mean the areas outside of that outline have been found clear or just not yet been fixed?
That's a very good question, and thank you for asking. The question was, outside of that area, is there contamination? Do you not know? Have you sampled? The answer is we've done extensive sampling throughout Fountain Grove and throughout the city. And the only places we are detecting this contamination is in the advisory zone. I drink the water outside of it, and I do believe it's safe based on the extensive monitoring. Within that advisory zone, we have valved off essentially all of it. We are seeing no migration and no signs of contamination elsewhere.
We have to move on to the next speakers, but the water department will be in the back, so you can ask additional questions. Again, there's going to be tables for each of the groups here that you can ask follow-up questions. But we do want to get to Colonel McFadden, I believe, has some questions that he wants to answer, so I'll call him up. Thank you.
All right, so first of all, most of these questions are personal in nature, have to deal with specific parcel issues. So what I would like to do is I'd like my team of subject matter experts to raise your hands. They're around the room here. There's about 5 of us here tonight, and the reason I address your attention to them, those are the individuals that right after this in the room on the side, they could address your issue and capture your issue and make sure we respond to it. Just a couple things here. My lot was cleared on the 11th of December and still no all clear from USACE and why. So again, I have my Major Matt Holbrook back there raising his hand right now. He's my issue resolution officer, and he'll be able to capture that issue, and then we'll be able to check on the status of that parcel and hopefully be able to explain why in fact that happened. We have a big trench in our yard from our Army Corps contractors. Can we get assistance refilling the 3-foot deep trench? Again, if we need to capture the issue, capture the point of contact, and so we can check on that. Lot has been cleared for a couple weeks except for the burned cars. When can we expect these to be removed? So it's a 2-part process. DMV goes out and verifies the VIN on these vehicles. Once the VIN is verified, then the contractor comes back and removes those cars. That is what in the phase after debris removal called the final prep phase before the county's notified. And again, if we could get your name and contact information, we could check on that status for you. We already talked about sidewalks. Why did they take some driveways and leave others? So there's a couple different reasons that possibly this could have happened. If the driveway, part of the driveway was in the ash footprint and was damaged by the fire, that would have been one reason. If it was damaged during debris removal operations, that would have been another reason. I would like to address this specifically. So if we could also capture the specific address and the contact information right after this. Thank you very much and look forward to talking to you.
Thanks. And finally, I'd like to invite Robert Pespain from FEMA up. He's got a few questions to answer. One. Okay, there we go.
All right. Question is it possible to get a copy of the soil test? If so, how? Do these tests include the geotechnical report that determines load to ensure that there are no expansive or liquefiable soils? So we're working through the process now. As we return these properties back to the county and then they notify you, the homeowner, some additional information, and we're working on that now. I do not believe that the soil tests will be included in the homeowner's report that's issued back to you in regards to your property, but certainly willing to, if this is a concern of the survivors, willing to look into that. Yes. Yep.
Yeah, I can talk to that. So you're correct. So if you don't have a soils test, what we're finding in areas like Coffee Park and others, that we are asking that a soils test be done and brought in so we can make sure that whatever is built, whatever footprint or foundation you use is appropriate and can be a successful project. So we are asking that you bring in a soils report for that. So at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to break into tables. So we have the contractors board, we have the county, we've got the city, the water department, Corps of Engineers. Feel free to ask questions, and thank you very much for coming tonight. We appreciate it.